The subconscious mind is what's responsible for our memories and emotions and habits. So yeah, like we talked about before, like driving, even emotions like happiness, joy, even anxiety and sadness is really comes from the subconscious mind. That's why we don't even know why we are unhappy sometimes, right? Why we are like fearful of sometimes, because we don't understand, because it's at the subconscious level that these things are generated from. And that's also where your like long-term memory, so things that happened to you in your past when you were a child, going through different experiences, there's a lot of data there that is still embedded. So you're not consciously thinking about them, but it is there for you if you decided to access and think about certain things. So all these things are essentially recorded in your subconscious mind. And you will see that it is also responsible for your automatic thinking and your a lot of the emotional reactions you have. So I remember one of the main issues that I had before in my life is that I used to get angry really fast, right? Especially one of the main reasons, when I used to play sports, it was to be aggressive was very useful. I didn't know being aggressive can cause me high blood pressure, cause me anxiety, and then anxiety can lead to other issues. So I didn't really know that. I thought it was, it's okay to feel that way. What's wrong? It has been so helpful for me before. What's wrong with being angry and having that emotional reactions? So I didn't really check that. So wasn't really mindful about that. So when I now look into it, I realize it's again caused a lot of things, and it's actually coming from the subconscious mind, or aspect of the mind that I wasn't really aware about. So that was a major thing that kind of led me to letting go of certain emotions or even reactions that I had had in the past, and try to change them. And I'll tell you, there are processes on how to change it. Basically, the law of substitution, right? Thoughts can be replaced and reframed consciously. So if you started to decide, like, what, I don't want to be angry anymore, I don't want to have that negative reaction towards that, your subconscious will start honoring that. But the conscious mind to need to decide that. So that's one of the main things I found. If you do decide that you do want to stop a behavior, and if you do it enough times, you repeat yourself enough time, this combination of things can bring you the change that you're looking for. It just, again, it's not something I knew, that you can change thoughts like that. But I realized, again, why do people go to school? Why do people go to church or temple? They are looking to actively learn and change themselves. So it's because of this law of substitution that is within the mind that allows you to do that, right? And if you apply with, like I said, law of repetition, then you can reinforce the new idea that you're putting in. So that's one of the major ones. And even things like addiction patterns, and what I recognize is actually coming from that. Again, addictions are basically, many people have a negative attitude towards about addiction, but what it is just coping mechanism, right? Sometimes you don't have a better way to deal with a situation or challenge, or stressful situation. Sometimes we look for something that suits us. Like, some people take alcohol, some people take drugs, right? And so these addictions, don't have to look at them negative way. In fact, if you start to look at them in a negative way, it becomes more stronger, right? So many people have a lot of different addictions coming from as a way to cope with their challenges and behavior. So what I say to now people, don't be so hard on yourself. If you have addictions, learn there's a way to change that, move away from that, and there's a way to actually stop it, right? And I've experimented with that as well. And I found ways to actually how to stop certain things that I was even doing using this system, right? So that's very key component to know, because I see a lot of people, when they have something that they don't want to do, they're really hard on themselves. That actually causes you to diminish your own self-esteem, which causes a whole bunch of other problems we'll talk about. But it causes the addiction symptom or addiction itself to get stronger, right? So we'll talk more about that. And even aspects like negative self-talk, negative talk about other people, coming naturally from that. Like I said, like, I see a lot of people complaining about other people, somebody, right? I was like, do you know what is it doing it to you? And many people don't know, complaining about themselves or some other group, or about even themselves, not really have a positive effect on the long run. Again, I did these things too without knowing the effects of it. But now I know the effects of it. I obviously don't do it as much, but it does. It is there. It is sometimes comes through the subconscious mind when I get stressed out, or it just, what I call it, just pops out of my mouth or pops out into my consciousness, and you can't really stop, especially during stressful times. So that's one of the things you will see when you become more mindful. You can start to see that, and you can start to control and change that. So yeah, so rumination, like we talked about before, certain, repeated cycles of thinking, right? That, again, I struggled with it for a while, and especially when I was going through a challenging time, like, why am I keep thinking that? Like, especially my father passed away. I was keep thinking, what's going to happen to, after I die? The Buddhist culture then talking about karma, and when things were going not my way, I was like, is it because of karma, right? What do I do now, right? Like, continually this rumination of like fear was running in my head, and I realize now it's coming from the subconscious mind, because I agreed upon to think that way, right? So that was one of the main ones that I started to notice. And another thing about the subconscious mind that you will notice is that it doesn't really argue with you. It doesn't judge what you say. It just simply just takes it and goes with it, and just goes with it. It doesn't really tell you, don't think that way, don't think the other way, think this way. It doesn't really say any of that. It doesn't have no filtering mechanism. So it just, whatever you code in, whatever you think or whatever you believe, it will say, sure, I will act upon it. Right? So that's something that you will see about the subconscious mind. It doesn't come and argue with you. That's something I wonder. It's like, is there anything who can tell me what I'm doing right and wrong? And I was like, I really couldn't even that's one of the things I struggled in my career. It just, I was looking for like a coach or counselor or something who can tell me, like, am I doing the right stuff? Or am I doing the wrong stuff? Am I going to get into trouble for, thinking that way or doing things that way? So that's one of the ones that I was missing. And that's, again, why what I'm doing now and coaching and training is kind of giving that extra perspective for people. And certain things that you're thinking and doing might not be helpful. That's one of the things that we see, right? And another thing about the subconscious mind, you will realize that it's infinitely creative. So your creative ability, your ability to do things, accomplish things, actually comes from that. Like, but problem is, like we talk about, it doesn't have necessarily the decision making ability or the logic to figure out what to be creative on. If you tell it to be go create a nuclear weapon, it will do that, and it will bring information from all the universe. It can access that, right? It can access the superconscious mind to get this information. It will start accelerating. If you started to say that, oh, you want to write a book on God, it will start doing that. So it doesn't really make the decision for you. It will just say, yeah, we have infinite capability. We'll just bring it for you if you believe that it is possible for you to do it. So belief is a big controlling factor for how to control your subconscious mind. So that's why when you go through schooling or go through different practices, if you can believe the right beliefs or have faith in certain beliefs, right, you can have different results. So that's one of the main things that I realized. And another easy way to really understand the subconscious mind is recognize that it works like a fertile soil or like a garden, right? Depending on the thoughts and beliefs that you entertain, right, or you learn about, you're essentially starting to seed or plant these ideas. Even these conversation here, you're starting to seed or plant certain ideas of understanding the mind, right? So we will talk about it, like there are certain things that happens when you started to learn about the mind. It started to sometimes be distracted or feel sleepy. It's normal, because it's something sometimes very new for people, right? So if you don't have the right soil or right pathways, it might feel that way in the beginning, and it's okay. It's anticipate, and then once you learn more about the mind, it becomes more easier to understand and learn about the mind. Its capabilities are huge. Like, can't even put it on like a heavy. It's big because it's tapping into because we will get into more. There's no limit to its ability to do things, right? So based on the situations when you were younger, and if you responded to situation in a specific way, that identity, that how you respond, get retained, because one of the main things is that mind can create multiple identities for you. Yeah, so that's one of the things. So you might still have that 15-year-old aspects still that kicks in during certain times when things are not going your way. But because you're bringing back to your conscious mind and saying like, look, why, who cares, right? You're reducing that effect that you have on you. But when you become objective and not judging that aspect, it will start to dissolve from you, and you can still be logical about it. But again, it's up to you to decide, is that the way I really want to respond to that situation? And that determines or activates that identity. Personality needs to be integrated. It's like, you know what, you acted that way probably because of you had a need. That's one of the things I see, is that, when we have that personality coming in, the way I tell people how to integrate that is like, there's a very likely there that it was a very useful way to respond at that time using that way. So it's sometimes like, oh, what about me, right? Am I still needed? Am I need to be? So it probably come to you or to your conscious, but again, it is something that needs to be identified. Like, you know what, like, it's almost, you need to like having your like a younger brother, right? Except having him outside of yourself, he's still inside of you. Right? So younger brother is still 15 and reacting. So how do you respond to that, a younger brother who is still having issues with things? Do you react to it?
Really interesting.
Yeah, you're reacting to it like anger and disappointment and why you still here? Or it's like, okay, I get you, why you had to do what you had to do at that time. That makes sense. Some of the one aspect is probably one of the things that's the same younger brother that helps you feel younger and helps you play sports. That's what I saw. It's like, I used to like criticize myself for the way being a certain way. Like you, same issue. Me going, coming from an immigrant family, I was like, man, I need to really worry about money. I need to do this way, right? But when I have similar issues, like it kicks up again. I was like, why are you here? Why are you like thinking about that way anymore? And I can't tell the difference sometimes. Like, is this me or is this me in the past? Then I realized, no, I reacted that way before because that was the right way to react. And I never said, it's like, is it good to react to that way anymore? It might not be useful anymore. So just having a conversation with myself was the first step. And then if you start to have enough conversation because of law of repetition, right? It will start to integrate the good aspects of that identity back to you, like your joyful self, or that playful side, even coming from that 15-year-old. So if you start to kill that, your joyful side might even go with it, right? That's why I see in a lot of people, when they become adults, they become too much adults, right? But the younger versions of them still like, where am I? I'm still here, right? During stressful times or something, it comes up, it makes you feel like you're really young or immature, but it's not really about that. It's just what I see is like, it's okay. It's how I used to act or how you used to act, and that got turned into a specific personality that you don't know, recognize. It's like having a teenager that you don't want to you don't want to deal with anymore, right? So how do you deal with teenager? Well, it's a little bit of a game, right? A bit of a process. So, but usually what I found is loving that teenager from the place you are right now is the best way still. Law of love. We'll talk about that more. There's literally a modality in psychotherapy called internal family systems. It's actually less to do with family and having multiple personalities inside of you and how those things got created. And what happens is, why when people have like bipolar or multiple personalities, because there is a disconnection between all of them, right? So then different scenarios and situations, different personalities kick in, right? So that's really what I believe is happening. And again, there's a, check it out on ChatGTP or anything like that, as we're talking. So it's something called internal family systems, that your mind or the subconscious mind naturally starts creating personalities in order to deal with situations better. It's the same thing with the personality we have at work is different from the personality we have with our friends or with our parents, or so it's a different one. So usually what people get anxieties about is when they have to integrate all of them at once. Like if you have like a public speaking session, you need to have one personality that matches to everybody. So that's usually where the anxiety is coming from for a lot of people, because of that integration issue. But if you know about these things, you're like, it's okay, I can let my personalities be, I'm just going to be myself, right? So again, like there's a lot of implications you will see to understanding the mind and what it does in order to deal with situations. So we'll talk more about that. And we talk about, reprogramming through repetition and conscious learning, right? So again, it's a major function of how the mind works is through repetition. So if you want to learn skills and repetition is needed, some people think, if I just do it once, it's be good, I will be good to go. It doesn't really work that way for the mind, subconscious mind. We need to show it multiple times in order to go, and you have to implement it. You have to be conscious about it, especially in the early stages, right? So if you're, I don't know, I know many of you also having, working on your careers and developing different skills. So don't be so hard on yourself if you're not picking things up right away. It's only natural, right? So, things usually when you're picking up skills, like even me speaking, doing public speaking or writing or even coaching, it was not so natural. So I consciously have to get myself to do the right stuff in the beginning. And now it's becoming more and more natural, but that's how the way it kind of functions, right? So for skills, it's a very important thing how this law of repetition works. The mind also, especially the subconscious mind, also responsible. Again, this both subconscious and the superconscious mind. Will get into what are the differentiations between that, but you'll see at the end of the day, there's only really one mind when you understand things completely. There's really one mind with a capital M. But because we don't understand everything about our universe and ourselves properly, this level of categorization is necessary for us to kind of comprehend things. So for example, right now, who's like beating your heart right now, right? Who's causing you to breathe? Who's flowing the blood in your body? Like, I really don't know how any of those things are working, but they're working, right? So this is a certain aspect of the mind is highly intelligent, that is doing things behalf of you, right? Your like heart rate, breathing, healing, digestion, all these things. So when you started to understand these things and how they work, you're becoming more conscious or super conscious, right? So that's one of the main things that you will see is that when you do learn about the mind, these things started to also start regulating better as well. Especially your health and things like that. And we'll talk about why that's the case and so forth. And like we talked about before, it follows laws, right? Like cause and effect, we'll talk about more and more. But cause and effect is primarily this aspect we were talking about, where your thoughts have the ability to cause emotions, and the emotions have the ability to cause certain behaviors. And as another thing that needs to come out is that it also has the ability to cause your reality. Again, I'm experimenting with that aspects of things, but in traditionally that is known as metaphysics, right? So we'll talk more about that in our sessions.